In history, there are moments where everything could have changed with just one different choice, one different order, or one different victory. And as we start this story, I want you to picture a cold morning in the deep forests of ancient Germania, where Roman legions stand silent, waiting for a signal that never came in our real timeline. Because in our world, Rome failed to conquer Germania. But in this story, in this alternate world, they do not fail. They do not retreat. They do not break. Instead, they keep marching. And what happens next reshapes all of Europe.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. More alternate history twists are coming your way.
In our timeline, Rome's dream of controlling Germania collapsed in the year 9 AD, when 3 Roman legions were destroyed in the Teutoburg Forest. It was a disaster so shocking that the Emperor Augustus was said to tear his clothes and cry out, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions." Rome never forgot that day. They never replaced those legion numbers. And from that moment on, they stopped trying to fully conquer Germania. But in this alternate story, the battle goes differently. The Roman scouts detect the ambush early. The legions form tight defensive lines. The rain stops just long enough for Roman javelins to fly straight. And instead of destruction, Rome wins. Arminius, the leader of the Germanic revolt, is captured. His tribal alliance collapses. And suddenly, a door opens, a door Rome had once believed was forever closed. Rome now controls the Rhine frontier without fear. They push north, they push east. They begin building roads through thick forests where no Roman engineer had ever dared to go. Forts rise along the Elbe River, and the tribes of Germania, the Cherusci, the Chatti, the Suebi, the Bructeri, find themselves facing something they are not prepared for, a united, confident, unstoppable Rome. The tribes fight, of course. They ambush, they resist. But without a leader strong enough to unite them, they are defeated one by one. Rome does what Rome does best: divide, pressure, negotiate, and conquer. And slowly, Germania becomes something no historian in our world ever expected: a Roman province. Now imagine what happens next. The Roman world is no longer pinned down on its western frontier. The empire now stretches deep into Central Europe, controlling fertile land, new trading routes, and millions of new subjects. Over time, Roman towns rise where tribal villages once stood. Roman law replaces the shifting alliances of the tribes. Latin mixes with local languages. And a new Roman-German population begins to grow. History takes a deep breath, because this is the moment Europe changes forever. With Germania secured, Rome suddenly has more manpower. Hundreds of thousands of young Germanic men are recruited into the legions. But in this timeline, they are not outsiders. They are not barbarian auxiliaries. They are trained as Roman soldiers from the start, loyal to the empire, loyal to the eagle standards they grow up seeing everywhere. They learn Latin. They study Roman discipline. And soon these soldiers become some of the strongest parts of the Roman military machine. Every frontier becomes easier to guard. Every campaign becomes easier to launch. Rome is not defending a border against Germanic invasions anymore. It is using Germanic strength to expand its own power. As Rome grows stronger, something else changes. The pressure on the eastern border shifts. In our world, Rome constantly fought with Parthia and later Persia. But in this alternate world, with more troops and more resources, Rome can push deeper into the east. Maybe they even break Persia earlier. Maybe they gain more land in the Middle East. Maybe they gain access to more trade routes connected to India and even China. The empire becomes richer, more stable, less desperate. And all of this is possible because one forest in Germania did not become a graveyard for 3 legions. But the impact is not just military, it is cultural. Over centuries, Germania becomes Romanized, much like Gaul or Spain. Imagine cities like Cologne, Mainz, and Trier growing even larger and spreading deeper into the continent. Imagine Roman theatres, Roman baths, Roman markets, and Roman schools in what is now Denmark or northern Poland. Latin becomes the main language of Central Europe, and the people who will one day form the Franks, Saxons, or Goths instead grow up as Roman citizens with Roman identities. The great migrations that collapse Rome in our timeline never happen the same way, because those barbarian nations never fully form. The biggest shift comes around the year 300 AD, the time when our real Roman Empire begins to crack. Economic problems, weak emperors, and constant invasions shake the empire. But in this alternate reality, Rome is stronger. They have Germanic recruits loyal to the empire. They have more farmland, more trade, more taxes. They have towns in Central Europe that create a strong middle class, and they have a population that sees Rome not as a distant empire, but as their own civilization. Rome may still face challenges, corruption, succession disputes, internal power struggles, but the empire itself does not crumble so easily. It might not split into an eastern and western half, or if it does, both halves might survive. Imagine now the year 410, the year Rome was sacked by the Visigoths in our world. In this alternate timeline, the Visigoths are not enemies of Rome. They might not even exist as a separate nation. They might instead be a Romanized people living inside the empire. And even if some tribes still live outside Rome's reach, the empire's borders stretch so far into Central Europe that reaching Rome would take months of marching through well-defended, heavily Romanized regions. The sack of Rome likely never happens. Europe in the Middle Ages becomes unrecognizable. Without Germanic kingdoms like the Franks and the Lombards, the political map of Europe is entirely different. Instead of early medieval France, you might have a Roman province that slowly evolves into a Roman-style kingdom. Instead of Anglo-Saxons conquering Britain, the Romanized tribes of Germania might help reinforce Roman Britain, keeping it part of the empire for centuries longer. The English language itself might not exist. Modern-day Germany speaks a form of Latin. France speaks another form. Italy, another. But all connected, all similar, all born from a shared Roman-German foundation. Now let's look even deeper. Because if Rome survives longer, say into the 700s or 800s, then the Islamic expansion of the Middle East may also change. The early caliphates might find a powerful, united Rome blocking their advance into North Africa and Spain. Instead of the Battle of Tours, instead of centuries of conflict between Christian Europe and the Islamic world, you might see a long and steady frontier managed by two massive civilizations that never fully break each other. The Crusades might never happen. The Renaissance might happen earlier or later, depending on how stable Roman knowledge remains. Europe's identity, languages, religions, borders, and philosophies all grow from a different root. And think about modern times. If Rome remains a powerful, united empire for longer, Europe may never split into dozens of rival kingdoms. Instead, it could grow into something like a single superstate stretching from Portugal to Poland. A country where Latin-based languages dominate almost everything. A continent where Roman laws and Roman roads evolve instead of collapsing. A Europe that rises into the industrial age as one giant empire instead of many competing nations. The modern world might see a Roman superpower rivaling China, not European nations fighting each other in world wars. Those wars might never happen at all, and all of this, every change, every ripple through time, comes from one simple moment in a cold forest. One moment where Rome does not lose 3 legions. One moment where Germania becomes Roman. One moment where history turns left instead of right. So the real question is not just, what if Rome conquered Germania? The real question is this: what kind of world would we be living in today if Rome had never stopped expanding? And the answer is a world that feels familiar in some ways, but completely transformed in others. A world shaped by Latin words, Roman laws, Roman culture, and Roman roads. stretching across almost all of Europe, a world where the fall of Rome never becomes the symbol of an ending, but instead becomes the beginning of a much longer Roman story.